said, in the midst of your storm, said, I'm gonna have my way. He said, I am God, and above me there's no other, no other. Listen, he said, no weapon formed against me shall ever prosper. He said, no weapon, no weapon formed against me will ever prosper. My God said, my. Oh, he said, oh. Spread your love like a wildfire and lead this world to something higher. I'm gonna keep climbing this mountain, keep walking this road, no turning back now. I'm sold out, 'cause Lord, I know you gave away your life, so I'm gonna give you mine. Jesus, wherever you go, I'm gonna follow, follow. Ooh, I'm gonna follow, follow. Oh, I won't give up. Come on, babe. Take my life, Lord. Have your way. I won't give up. Come on, babe. Take my life, Lord. Have your way. Oh, have your way. I'm gonna keep climbing this mountain, keep walking this road, no turning back now. I'm sold out, 'cause Lord, I know you gave away your life, so I'm gonna give you mine. Jesus, wherever you go, I'm gonna follow, follow. Ooh, I just wanna be, I'm gonna follow, follow. Lord, just lead me. I'm gonna follow, follow. Ooh, I'm gonna follow, follow.
Connecting the community through gospel. The new 107.9 FM, W300EB, Macon, and WDDO 980 AM, Perry, Macon.
The views expressed on this program are not necessarily the views of the Glory 980 AM, the Glory Media Group, LLC, WDDO AM, its staff, management, or advertisers, but are the views and opinions of the participants of the broadcast.
It is now time for the live broadcast of the WILLIE with Lynette Westbrook and Mr. Duke.
And good evening and welcome to another segment of the NAACP Truth Show. I'm Willie DUMAS, your host, along with President Wes Brooks that's joining us this evening. Hope you had a great weekend. Hope you got a chance to check out all the cherry blossom festivities that's going on around town. I got the opportunity on yesterday to check out the parade, and the rain held off just enough for the parade to go through, and so we came out on dry ground, which that was wasn't expecting that, but it worked out really great. And I hope that each and every one of you are taking advantage of all the activities across the city that's in place to celebrate cherry blossom here in Macon. President Wes Brooks and myself, on last week, we talked about the Sheriff Forum that was held down at City Hall there, and I got a chance to actually participate there, and it was a real good forum. A lot of good questions were posed to the potential candidates for sheriff, and a lot of their ideas as far as how they would change the office of sheriff or do something differently. And so it was very interesting. It was a packed out house. And so kudos goes off to A. Philip Randolph, Democratic Women, NAACP, and the other organizations that put this forum together. A matter of fact, there's another forum tonight dealing with the Board of Education down at City Hall, starting at 6 o'clock. So those of you who are off or have the time, do stop by and speak with the candidates there, and look for another good forum.
Yeah. There was I was not able to make that forum, but I'm gonna try to make it tonight. As you know, that we lost one of our
dear members,
one of our soldiers,
Yes.
Maria Bryant. A lot of you may have seen her name come up sometimes in the the queue here when we were talking about voter registration. She was the treasurer for the NAACP and also the political action chair for the NAACP here in Macon. And she's just irreplaceable. She was very knowledgeable of the different laws that dealing with voting, making sure that there's people were educated on voting, making sure that voter registration was taking place to make people get sure people get registered to vote. She dealt with our Get Out to Vote campaigning and making sure that people were, we had canvassers, phone banking, and all that. She took care of all that. So she was just a freedom fighter for the NAACP, and we
Absolutely.
lost her actually on March the 3rd, and we buried her this past Tuesday. And so it was a great loss to this organization. And so
And the
we're just
community as
asking
well.
you to keep, yes, the
Yes,
community, asking you to keep the NAACP in prayer and her family in prayer because this was a great loss to, she was not just a member, she was just like family to us,
absolutely.
just like a sister to me. So we're just asking you to keep the NAACP in prayer as we deal with this significant loss in our branch.
Absolutely. When you have people that work and don't mind working, it's hard. Those people become very irreplaceable, particularly because of their work ethic.
Right,
And she had
right.
a super
Yes.
work ethic. Not only did she work in our organization, but the GMBC,
Yeah, she worked with
Georgia
other
Baptist Association.
yeah, she worked with so many different agencies, the Housing Authority, Forrest B. Johnson.
Right.
She worked with um, she's did voter registration in the Bibb County school districts. She's worked with different fraternities and sororities. So she's been all over the place working with different different organizations and get out the vote. So what we've been doing is trying to make sure that we keep her legacy alive.
Absolutely.
Mr. Dumas and I, and then one of our other members, Kathy Battle, we were actually participating in a voter motorcade with a Black Voters Matter last Sunday. And
Right.
so, and then we did voter registration with the sheriff department in Mega Sci-Fi. We did a voter registration with them on this past Saturday at the park. So to make sure that we get people registered to vote. So we still, we're still able to get register people to vote for the upcoming election.
And we do know that that work is necessary. Matter of fact, I got a call the same day of we funeralized Maria because
Mhm.
that it was ironic that she was funeralized on election day, that Tuesday, and there were some issues some people had at their polling place where their
Right.
polling place had been relocated and no notification had gone out, to them in that
Hmm.
regard, and so there's still a lot of work out there that has to be done, a lot of oversight that has to be in place. And of course, this organization, along with A. Philip Randolph and other organizations, we're that eyes and ears
Right.
to make sure those things don't happen. And if they do happen, there's some recourse that, people can actually take.
Yeah. I know when I went to vote, I had some issues when I went to vote. And so, um, we just have to make sure that we be mindful who we know where to report these issues. Because when I went to vote, I went in the line where the handicap, disability, handicap, they have a sign there with the symbol of handicap.
Hmm.
So I went in that line. And so when I got up to vote, the lady kind of gave me a hard time because I guess I didn't look 75 and I wasn't on a walking cane. So,
Wow.
she was telling me I was in the wrong line. And so I said, well, I have a handicap. I said, let me do this. Let me just go to my car and get the handicap decap. She would, no, that's okay, but you didn't want me to do that, but you want to continue to complain that I was in the
Right.
wrong line. So let me just go to my car and get my handicap decap because just because I wasn't on a walker and I wouldn't say, I said, well, the sign says you don't have to be 75. She said, are you 75? I said, no, I'm not 75. She said, well, you're in the wrong line. I said, but the sign has a handicap decal back there. I said, I can just go to the car and get that because I didn't want to make it an issue. But, you telling me that I had to be the only reason I could be in that line. I had to be 75.
Wow.
So we got to be mindful of um, to make sure that people don't this doesn't happen to people. Then they get discouraged and don't want to just walk away and leave and don't vote.
Yeah, because that's the worst thing to happen, for someone to leave and not uh, exercise their right to vote. Um, because we know that provisional ballots and those kinds of things are available, particularly, I think it's after 5 o'clock that you can actually use that. But we have to use every means we can to make sure our vote counts and that we don't forfeit that right.
Yeah. So we was talking about today they certified the uh the presidential election here today and the board of elections today. So they um actually when I got in there they were already meeting on last about a minute. So they had sent
Wow.
something out saying it was a special election today. So um we just have to make sure that we don't get discouraged. Things may happen. Don't get discouraged. When you get ready to go vote. The next time we vote, we'll be voting at our locations. If you have any questions or not for sure where you're supposed to vote at, you can go to my voters page and put your information in, like your name, first initial, last name, and your date of birth, what county, and it'll pull up and tell you where you need to vote. Now, this past weekend we were able to. Some people changed their address.
Right.
Um, they changed their address because they had moved, and that's another thing people need to make sure you do. If you have not changed your address, and some people forget that even though they moved, they haven't updated their uh, address change, and they'll go to the wrong polling place because they're going to the polling place where where they're thinking that I guess where they live at now. But unless you change your address, you have to vote in the address that they have on file.
Right. And they can also check that by going to the
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was just saying. They can
mvp.sos.gov.
check that
Yeah.
because your old you can change it there too.
Right.
Yeah, you can change your address there too, and because that's what we did this past weekend. We changed some people addresses that said that they had moved and they didn't know where they're supposed to vote at, and so uh, it'll tell them once you update it, it'll tell you where you can go back on there and look and see where you need to vote.
Right. And so that's a very good tool to use to be able to make certain you're in the right place. Because when you're uncertain like that, that's a real bad feeling. Because last election we had an individual that lived in Locust Grove,
Right,
and
right,
when you're at that distance and they're telling you you need to go to Macon to vote,
right.
then that can be a major inconvenience. So it's important to know exactly where you need to go. Thank you, some more Gang, for putting that the site up for our listening audience. You
Right.
can go there and check your status and do what you need to do
Yeah.
on that. And so we thank you for that.
And so, I want to encourage um, people that are renting. We're going to be holding some town hall meetings to kind of educate people because educate people on what they need to do, not giving legal advice, but what you need to do as a tenant. When I go into the courts, I see so many people unprepared, and what I'm finding out, Mr. Dumas, is that a lot of times evictions are filed, and they know that they filed them long enough to know that once you file, and even if that's not what you evicting the tenant for, then most likely when you get in front of the judge, they're gonna side with. And it's sad to say that, but that's what I see.
Wow.
And so the concern that I have is that when you file an eviction for one thing. You should not be allowed to discuss anything else, no other issue except for what you filed that complaint about. If it's anything other than what you filed a complaint about, then you need to be amending your complaint or you need to be filing another complaint. But that's not what's happening. Once they get in there and if they file a complaint for one thing and then they see where they can't win on that, then they'll bring up something else and then tenants get evicted. But it's not fair to the tenant because the tenant didn't come prepared
Right.
um, with evidence to be able to defend whatever else that you bring up. They came to defend what they responded to. When you filed the complaint, when they filed the complaint, they serve you. You have 7 days to respond, and when you respond, you come prepared to court to defend what you responded to and what their
Right.
complaint was. But that's not what's happening. That's what we're seeing. We gotta educate our community on because a lot of times when you go into court, they go unrepresented, and so a lot of times the Georgia Legal Service does not take everyone's case. They don't take all cases, so a lot of times tenants go unrepresented into the courtroom. But we gotta teach them to start keeping up with their paperwork.
Yeah, the records are
Yeah,
important.
there. I throw my receipt away. Why? Why would you throw your rent receipt away? So you need to we need to keep a file that we keep all of our important documents in. Um, keep your important documents in, especially where somewhere where you got to live and you got to have a roof over your head, and then you can't
Exactly.
prove you paid your rent because. And I'm telling you, we having a lot of issues with tenants saying they pay rent and landlords say they hadn't paid it. Sometimes it can be disputed. They come up with their receipts, but then why is the property manager saying you hadn't paid and you got your receipt? What they've done with the money? So it's so very we gotta educate folks into what they need to do in order to be able to keep a roof on their head, especially because a lot of this stuff is technicality issues of tenants don't have their receipt or can't prove that they paid something. So we got to get people educated on and teach them what they need to do in order to keep sufficient files when it's dealing with your housing issues. Um, I know I missed some about 2 or 3 weeks going into the jail, and so haven't been able to be there. But still, the NWCP is still getting phone calls um, from inmates there. And so what we're going to be doing is doing an open record request and requesting an update of the number of people that are incarcerated. Um, Good afternoon, Miss Janet Goff. Um, Thank you for tuning in, listening. What we're going to be doing is requesting um, open record requests as far as how many inmates are still incarcerated that are
Hmm.
incarcerated, and it tells us how long they've been there. Um, and then we're going to be requesting something from the district attorney's office also, because some of those people are cases are still waiting, but they're not incarcerated. So we got to look at that. I'm getting some complaints again about probation. I think that's going to be a revolving door
With
with
the probation.
probation,
Yeah.
because there are a lot of issues with our probation, and we have to start sitting into what we do, but we gotta have more people sitting into the courtrooms. Georgia has one of the highest rate of people being on probation in the country.
Wow.
But we have more people on probation, and that's for a reason. You got a lot of these prisons and uh, prisons that have work camps. And I can remember an incident a couple of weeks ago where an inmate was transferred there, but wasn't able to work because they had a sickness, a condition, and they transferred him out of that because it's a work camp. If you're not able to work,
They don't
then
have any need for you,
they
really.
don't want you at that particular prison. But we gotta, and I understand that you're in prison, but what we gotta do is look at it also is that they're working these people into and people don't look at it like that. They feel like you're in prison, so you do what we tell you to do. But people are not really looking at it the way that I'm looking at it, that people that are incarcerated, you got them in a place where they're going out working, in the working in
Out in the
the
community. And
community. But if they get hurt, then it's just like, it's their responsibility, but they're actually working for the state. The state is responsible for
every inmate.
inmate, but then a lot of times they're not getting treatment. I would just look at, you know, I go through a lot of sometimes when people call me and say that they're uh that they're incarcerated, I'll pull up to see, you know, if there's any issues in that jail, or how many, if somebody's just died, or there's just been any issues in that prison or not. So we got to start paying close attention. I know that people, like you say, people are incarcerated. They don't. You're not incarcerated for you to be comfortable, but they got
Should be
people
a
working
safe
like they're,
environment.
yeah, they got people working, and then something happened to them, and then um, the family is just, you got people working. Sometimes they don't even know whether they got health issues or not. They just working them. Um,
Wow.
I was in talking to someone at a prison not too long ago that actually had died of a heart attack a couple weeks before that person went to that prison. But it's a work camp, and so you
Wow.
got to do, when you got people out working like that, you should be doing medical, to me, exams on these prisoners that you got going out working to make sure that they're able to do that. And then they die in prison from a heart attack. So, but they're working for the state.
Right.
And so it's just a lot dealing with these prisoners. People, their basically their rights are just, all their
Thrown
rights are
out the
just
door.
taken away, and people do have rights, whether you're incarcerated or not. Um, but let me actually, we're gonna kind of change the subject for a little bit. Your take on the Fonnie Willis
Case.
situation, yeah, with the judge making a decision in order for her to stay on the case, um, to stay on the case.
One of her prosecutors
Yeah, he had to
had to
step
step
down.
down.
So, what's your take on that? What you think about that?
To my my take is it's a bit a bias, to a degree, because if they went to court and found that it wasn't a whole lot of proof to, you know, prove their case, um, it's almost like some type of little sidebar pre-bargaining, to me, instead of, because it's a very politicized trial,
Hmm.
because number one,
Yeah,
she's
it's a high
prosecuting.
profile
It's a
case.
high profile case.
Hmm.
She's prosecuting against former president,
Right.
and to take away certain tools that are at the disposal of a DA, probably having one of her lead investigators taken off of the case, it seems to me it's a pass.
Well, two, he wasn't her first choice. That should have been, once that was established, it should have been over with. He was not her first choice. I
Right.
think Roy Barnes was her first choice, but he was in fear of being having to have a bodyguard for the rest of his life. He didn't want to do that, but uh, you know, it's not making sense to me. The kind of money that she's making, and why would, to try to say that she's benefiting um, from whatever money that she's paying him for the work that he's done. So, and it was a point made that when you have, for example, I'm gonna give you an example. You had, when the Ahmaud Arbery
Aubrey
case,
case. Hmm.
you had a husband and wife, as an attorney. They were representing two different. One was representing the dad, and one was representing the son, but they were husband and wife.
Right.
Now that wasn't a conflict. I'm saying that's basically the same thing. They saying that they were in a relationship, and so but they can't be in a relationship and handling prosecuting the case and then a relationship working in the same on the same case. But you can have a husband and wife work
Representing.
representing and they discuss the case.
Right.
They discussing the case. So, I just think I knew it was I kind of felt something was going to happen with this kind of high profile case, um, with her taking on this case. I expected something to come about, but not
This
something like this. Where and then the judge made a he kind of criticized um he gave some criticism when he made his final decision. He didn't disqualify her, but he either she come off the case or he would have to step down in order for her to stay on the case. But to take it to the extent that they've taken it, she makes her own money.
right.
And I'm sure if she's paying him that kind of money, she's making more money than he making. So why would she need his money to and people, we got to understand that when you get ready to run for office, they come out of the woodwork. They come from everywhere. They try to discredit you
Investigation after
and right.
investigation.
And so I just tell anybody when you get ready to run for office, just make sure you
Squeaky.
got because streaky clean because they're gonna come, especially dealing with a case like this, a high profile case like that. But even with that, it still does not change the fact that he did what he did.
Absolutely.
It does not change the fact that he called and tried to get them to change the election.
Action.
So no matter who you take off the case, the facts are still there. Whether whoever prosecutes the case, the facts are still there. So, you
And
know,
now also, with this ruling, it delays the case, and it'll probably be delayed to after the election.
so this is what's a concern to me, and Georgia is one of the states that has not changed that where um, you can vote as a convicted felon. So how is it that if the president is convicted, will he be able to vote?
Right.
Now, just depends on the state. I guess depending on what state he's in, because some states have changed it, but Georgia's one of the states that have, and to me that says a lot.
Right.
That if you're a convicted felon, you're not able to vote because we already know the majority of the demographic of the people that are in prison, what it's like. So, um, why? What does voting have to do with you being a convicted felon? You're still a citizen.
That's right.
Um, that's what it requires you to be a citizen in order to be able to register to vote or a legal resident. So what does that have to do with anything? But we know who, like I said, we know who the demographic makeup of the people that are incarcerated. So they're just set on not um, allowing convicted felons to be able to vote.
By any means necessary. It's out of all the things we saw in the last election that was put in place, and
To
how
deter people.
trivia, yeah,
Hmm.
and how trivia a lot of those were. It lets you know that if it's any way they can put something in place, they're doing it.
And look at right here in Bibb County.
Right.
We got people, we have um, uh, commissioners saying that they're not living in their district. But then that's one thing. But then when you see that we know that you've moved out of your district since last July, but then you don't step down until January of this year, And we know what happened. What would have happened if you had to step down in December? We would have had to have a special election,
Right.
giving the people the right to choose. But when you take that right away from the people, that's called voter suppression.
That's right.
It's no other word for it. There's no other term. It's voter suppression. When you take away the right for people to choose, it's voter suppression. And that is happening right here in Bibb County.
Absolutely. And
And nobody wants to take accountability for it. They're making excuses for it. You know, that why didn't he could have just moved because he could have just stepped down because he knew he wasn't in the district way before that. And see, and I was just reading an article. I was just reading an article a couple of days ago. It popped up on my phone off a news break where um somebody was suing the commissioners.
hmm,
Um yeah, it was printed by the Journal, and a suit was filed in court. It was filed on March the 8th for two county commissioners. The complaint was issued by Captain P.B. Butler and Detective R. Keynes, both listed with the West Virginia State Police Martinburg Detachment. And it says the complaint alleged the Jefferson County Commissioner and their names, 42 counts.
wow.
Um, said the commissioners were not coming to the meetings. Um, vacancies in the offices. It was just different things. And see, those are some of the things that we saw.
Right.
Commissioner Tillman was missing meetings November and December. And see, they paid and all these trips and on the Board of Elections behalf, and so it's gonna be interesting. That's something that we're looking at. Also, this just popped up on my phone this weekend, um, showing where these commissioners were actually being charged with um,
Those different things they didn't do.
those counts.
Well, our time has run out, and so we'll have to catch you guys next week right here at NAACP Truth
$30 to
Show.
join.
$30 to join the greatest organization.
You have been listening to the live broadcast of the NAACP with Gwinnett Westbrook and Mr. Dumas. Come join us next Monday at 4 o'clock p.m. on 980 WDDO.
The views expressed on this program are not necessarily the views of the Glory 980 AM, the Glory Media Group, LLC, WDDO AM, its staff, management, or advertisers, but are the views and opinions of the participants of the broadcast.